Alright, so now I will examine Bill the Butcher's outfit in the first scene set where he appears, set in 1863 or 64, whatever. And he comes and he goes to talk with Boss Tweed, because Boss Tweed has called him. But wait, before that I want to examine the scene where there's an old lady at the boat scene, the first boat scene, an old lady coming off a boat from Ireland, and one of the gang members from Bill the Butcher's gang, he throws a potato in her face. This is from about 18 minutes into the film.
I only came 2 hours
examine
from Hellgate.
the clothing.
It took me for an immigrant. Why not? There were 1,000 different accents in New York, and to the natives, you see, he was all the same.
I was examining Boss Tweed, and there's a fellow upon his right also selling tickets into both rather accurate looking top hats. I want to examine these gang members. They look very accurate. One of them looks particularly accurate. His face, it looks dirty and it is badly shaved. The thin man of the gang members, he looks like Ugolole.
Since the time of the Great Famine, they'd come straight.
And in that scene, I very adore his coat.
Got a right warm welcome.
Go back to Ireland, you dumb.
So he's the one throwing the potato. So he actually has a flexible top hat, made out of fur, probably no plush added on top. But alright, somewhere like that, whatever. And he has this grey linen, probably frock coat. The right shape, it is without much padding, it is quite thinly cut. I mean, it's snug fitting, like it was still the fashion. I previously said it was the fashion for ample clothing in 1860. Well, no, it was more the fashion for still things that were snug. There's a bit of interpede, where it was very wild, was from 1865 to 75, but that is just before 65, so some people still favored the more 1850-ish, snuggier fitting things. And again, it could have been supposed to have been made before, because people kept their clothes for a long time. These clothes are meant to last for a long time. And we do remember that people owned a very few amount of clothes, and they wore it until it wore out so much they could either no longer wear it, or if they were with more money, like whether the gang members could have some money, they would just pass it down to somebody else or sell it, or just keep it as a treasure piece. You know, they would have it repaired a few times, but when the cloth would start looking bad and not new, then they would stop wearing it, and so on and so forth. And so that's the reason for which very few items survive, because usually what happened was, for example, I'm a multi-billionaire, so I want my things to look new, so I keep my coat max of 6 months. I wear it every day for 6 months. Then I pass it on to my servant, my footman. My footman, he wears it for 2 years. With repairs, it will last 2 years, it will still look good. After 2 years, come and he wore it. 2 years is 720 days, so let us say he wore it half of the time, so he wore 365 wears, it was already worn 180 wears for 6 months for the original millionaire it belonged to. So come on, now it has gone through basically 1,100 wears. So it does not look new anymore, it cannot look new, it can look good. So what he does is he sells it for quite high sum. As a shell class item, somebody buys it and so on and so forth. At the end of the line, something that belonged to a multi-billionaire that wears these things a very few times, it ends up in a charity cross, like the 10th person it ends to, and it is all filled with mothballs and looks disgusting, and the stains can't really go away because it would have to be more than washed. It has already been washed, and some stains in order to go away, so it would have to be boiled. But most things were made out of wool. This cloth were made out of, like, overgarments were made out of wool, so if you boil it, it shrinks, so it can't, so it just looks horrible and disgusting and distressed, and this is what the trends would wear. But so, from that onwards, even when that poor person, the cloth starts falling apart and it cannot be re-sewn because the cloth itself is there, it is dead, even then they do not keep it as like a vestige of a coat. Even then they take out the buttons, reuse the buttons, cut pieces of the cloth and reuse that cloth to patch all the items of clothes, or what the tablecloth, or to use that cloth. It was a typical manner of to sell those cloths to a teller, and the teller, a cheaper teller, would use it to use as interlining for new coats. And so that is the reason for which, before mass production really became a thing, and even then it became a thing in America in the 1870s, 80s, but until it really became big mass production, very few garments survived from the past, before 1920s, when really mass production became huge, and there were many more people on the earth, first of all, and per person, people consumed more. They would want more coats per year to wear. And so, what I meant to say is that, yes, that was how things were. So, usually most of the originals I have are very formal. They are black, and those were kept more preciously because they were usually formal coats. They would not be worn that often, and they would usually only keep that one as a keepsake because perhaps that was what they had been wearing to their weddings, or an important funeral, or an important event. And these were more costly or more important because they were formal, so they would treasure them throughout the family, and so they end up to us. But the less formal alternatives, usually in lighter colors, usually have not survived at all. And they've been cut into little pieces after about 50 years and used to patch on the clothes, as I said. So they have technically not even survived in the form of a coat, however badly maintained that coat be. But there it is good to see. I mean, there's a front gun member, that very precise scene, 17 minutes 55. He's sharpening his knife. He has a red coat, the one with the red coat. It is actually a cutaway swallowtail coat, more commonly known as a morning coat, mourning, like the mother. And it is red. And he has these plaid tartan trousers, a black waistcoat. He looks very authentic, a very high stovepipe hat, probably 25 centimeters high. Looks like it could be Gossamer. And it is McGoyle in the back playing the harmonica. He has this coat is for sale, or it was for sale very recently. This grey coat, it looks navy in the movie. It is actually dark grey. I saw the Google pics, and even on the Google pics, it looks very accurate. I could already say it was new at first hand because it looks very new for a coat of that style, which would most likely be a minimum damaged after 100. Because as soon as I saw this could not even be from the 1880s. This would be before, which is meant to be from before. It could be 1860s, and usually garments from that era, except in the absolute exceptional exceptions, usually to have a minimum damaged. And it does look brand new, so I knew it must not have been an original, but it looks very authentic. It has a velvet collar. The fabric of the velvet collar contrasts with this dark, and the same fabric is upon the buttons. Cloth-covered buttons. This is also what I like about this movie. In many movies, they have non-faced buttons like on this modern coat. But usually, at least into the late 19th century and even beyond, most coats, even very informal country coats, would have a self-cloth covered buttons. They actually have an original sort of working class coat from the 70s, 1870s, and it looks like a self-covered button, but to bring the cost cheaper, it is actually a button that sews from the back, made out of cheap celluloid plastic from back then, and it is not. It looks like it is like silk face, but when it had cheated, so even when it had cheated, it looked like it did not have the stitching on top. And to make all that mistake, like in the Sherlock Holmes selling Jeremy Brett, most of them just looked like modern buttons. And it was not like that. Even the Sherlock Holmes set in the 1890s, they had more of those, but not most. And this is set in the 1860s, 1863, so by far most would either be like on this black waistcoat with the red coated knife sharpening fellow. He clearly has non-self-covered buttons, but are gilt with and it was sold from the back, and this was also typical. And then the rest have cloth-covered buttons. I'm going to skip through. No.
Excuse me. I think you're frightening me. So?
They have this very large knotted cravats in different types of knots. So clearly, they have been making the knots